It was the most sacred object in the ancient world. A gold-covered chest, said to hold the very presence of God. Kings went to war for it. A nation carried it at the head of its armies. It sat in the holiest chamber of the temple in Jerusalem. Behind a veil, no ordinary person could pass. And then, with no battle, no announcement, no record of its end, it simply vanished from history. The Ark of the Covenant was gone. This is not a story about where a treasure was buried. It is a story about a disappearance so complete that after nearly 3,000 years, no one can say for certain what happened. Was it destroyed? Hidden? Carried to a distant land? Every answer leads to another question. And the deepest mystery is not where the Ark went, but how something so important could vanish and leave no trace at all. To understand the mystery, we have to understand what the Ark was. According to the book of Exodus, it was built in the desert after Israel fled Egypt. A chest of acacia wood, overlaid inside and out with pure gold. Upon its lid, 2 golden angels faced each other, their wings stretched across the top. This was the mercy seat, the place where God was said to dwell among his people. It was not merely holy, it was the holiest thing they had. And it was powerful. The stories surrounding the Ark are stories of awe and of terror. The waters of the Jordan parted before it. The walls of Jericho fell as it circled the city. When enemies captured it, they were struck with plague until they sent it back. When a man reached out to steady it, the account says he fell dead on the spot. This was not an object to be handled lightly. It was carried by poles, by appointed priests, and approached with dread. For centuries, the Ark stood at the center of Israel's faith. King David brought it to Jerusalem in triumph. His son, Solomon, built a great temple to house it. And there, in the innermost room, the Holy of Holies, the Ark came to rest. A chamber of total darkness, entered by the high priest only once a year. For nearly 400 years, it remained the hidden heart of the nation. And then, the record begins to fall silent. Here is the first strange fact, and it is one most people never notice. The Ark does not disappear during some great catastrophe. It simply stops being mentioned. The last time the Hebrew Bible places it firmly in the temple is during the reign of King Josiah, around 621 years before Christ. That is more than 30 years before the Babylonians ever arrived. By the time disaster came to Jerusalem, the Ark may already have been gone. The disaster, when it came, was total. In 587 before Christ, the armies of Babylon, under King Nebuchadnezzar, broke through the walls of Jerusalem. They burned the city, they tore down the Temple of Solomon, and they carried away its treasures back to Babylon as spoils of war. And this is where the mystery deepens into something truly puzzling. The Babylonians were meticulous record keepers. When they looted the temple, their scribes wrote down what they took: the bronze pillars, the basins, the pots, the shovels, the gold and silver vessels. The lists are detailed, almost obsessive. Every object of value counted and recorded. But in all of those lists, there is one object that never appears. The greatest treasure of all, the Ark of the Covenant, is simply not there. think about what that means. The most important object in the temple, covered in gold, is absent from the inventory of the very people who stripped that temple bare. There are only two possibilities. Either the Babylonians took it, and for some reason did not record it, or when they entered the Holy of Holies, the most sacred chamber in the land, it was already empty. Both answers are extraordinary, and from this single silence, every theory is born. The first theory is the simplest, and to many scholars, the most likely. The ark was destroyed. When Babylon burned the temple, the ark may have burned with it. A chest of wood and gold thrown onto the fire, the gold melted down and carried away as shapeless bullion, its sacred form erased forever. It is not a satisfying answer. There is no hidden chamber, no distant sanctuary. But history is rarely satisfying. Sometimes the most precious things are simply lost in the flames. But the scriptures themselves hint at another possibility, that the ark was not lost, but deliberately hidden before the Babylonians ever arrived. One ancient text, the second book of Maccabees, tells that the prophet Jeremiah, warned by God of the coming destruction, took the ark away in secret. He carried it to a cave on a mountain, the same mountain from which Moses had once looked upon the promised land. There he sealed it away and declared that the place would remain unknown until God gathered his people again. It is a haunting image, the last prophet of a doomed city, hiding its greatest treasure in the dark of a mountain cave and telling no one where. But there is reason for caution. The book of Maccabees was written centuries after the events it describes. It may preserve a genuine memory, or it may be a story told to comfort a people who had lost everything. The cave, if it ever existed, has never been found. A third theory looks not to a distant mountain, but to the ground beneath Jerusalem itself. Jewish tradition, preserved in the Mishnah and the Talmud, tells that King Josiah, sensing the disaster to come, ordered the ark hidden, not carried away, but concealed in a secret chamber, deep beneath the Temple Mount. According to this tradition, it lies there still, sealed beneath the holiest and most contested ground on earth, where no excavation can ever reach it. And there is one more silence worth noting. Centuries later, in the year 70 after Christ, Rome destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem. In Rome, the Arch of Titus still stands, carved with the triumph of that conquest. It shows the sacred treasures of the temple paraded through the streets, the great golden lampstand, the trumpets, the sacred table. But once again, the ark is not among them. Whatever happened to it, it was already gone, long before Rome arrived. Which brings us to the most famous claim of all, that the ark never stayed in Jerusalem to be destroyed, because it had been taken long before to Africa. In the highlands of Ethiopia, in the ancient city of Axum, stands a small chapel, and within it, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church says, rests the true Ark of the Covenant. It is guarded by a single monk, chosen for life. He alone may see it. He never leaves its grounds, and when he dies, another takes his place. To this day, the story behind the claim is extraordinary. It tells of the Queen of Sheba, who traveled to Jerusalem to meet King Solomon, and of a son born of that meeting, named Menelik. As a man, Menelik is said to have visited his father and returned to Ethiopia carrying the ark with him. For Ethiopians, this is not legend, but the founding truth of their faith and their nation. But when we look for the history beneath the tradition, we run into difficulty. The story comes mainly from a single text, the Kebra Nagast, the Glory of Kings. It is a powerful and sacred book, but it was compiled in the 14th century after Christ, more than 2,000 years after the events it describes, by a dynasty that needed to root its right to rule in the line of Solomon. And the Ark of Axum is never shown. One scholar who studied Ethiopian tradition closely and who claimed to have seen the object reported that it was a wooden box and that it was empty. The faith is real, the tradition is ancient, but the proof remains forever just out of reach. So where does that leave us? With a chest of gold that shaped a nation and then slipped out of history without a sound, destroyed in Babylon's fire, hidden in a forgotten cave, sealed beneath the Temple Mount, carried to a chapel in Ethiopia. Each theory has its believers. None has its proof. Perhaps the most honest answer is the hardest one. We do not know. The Ark of the Covenant vanished into silence, and that silence has held for almost 3,000 years. Maybe it was always meant to. If you'd like to keep searching with us through the places where history and scripture meet, subscribe, and tell us which mystery we should uncover next.